how do we determine? Because how do you all determine what is right from what is wrong in matters that have no textual evidence? We've just said right now that burping and passing wind is worse than burping. How have we determined that? If there's no textual evidence for it. But if you say it's the acceptance of the people in the land and etc., then that could go back to the people's cultures, right? So, for example, in the Indo-Pak community, there's something that might be wrong to them, but it might not be wrong to the Somali community, or it might not be wrong to other communities. Where do you say that this is wrong and it's wrong, and there's no textual evidence for it? Do you understand my point? Like, a community might find an action that you just did despicable. Okay? And they find it extremely rude and humiliated, and they take it personal. But it's not a religious evidence they have for it. Not that I'm saying what they're feeling is wrong. They can. Give an example. There was a situation once where a brother had a revert brother, got married, has a wife, and he married a sister, a born Muslim sister, from a certain background. He married her. And this revert brother came into Islam, and he is taking everything from the Qur'an and the Sunnah. قال Allah, قال Rasul. So one day he learns about the ayah where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, لا تدخلوا بيوتا غير بيوتكم حتى تستأنسوا وتسلموا على أهلها. Don't enter a house which is not your house without taking permission, etc. And he took the ayah where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala mentions ثلاث عورات لكم. There are 3 times when it's bad to go to people's houses. من قبل صلاة الفجر وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة ومن بعد صلاة العشاء. 3 times where you're not allowed to go to people's houses in Islam. You shouldn't go to people's houses. من قبل صلاة الفجر, before صلاة الفجر. Okay. من قبل صلاة الفجر, من بعد صلاة الفجر, sorry. من بعد صلاة الفجر, sorry. After صلاة الفجر. من بعد صلاة الفجر وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة ومن بعد صلاة العشاء. You go into people's houses at dhuhr time when they're sleeping, which is the qaylula time. Okay. Go into the people's houses after Isha, and etc. So he's taken that these are the times you're not allowed to go to people's houses. You shouldn't go to people's houses. Not allowed, of course. Of course, he's talking about uninvited. Okay, if the person invited you at their house at that time, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's when you come uninvited. Okay, just knocking on the door. So, and he took the ayah where Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمُ رُجِعُوا فَرَجِعُوا وَأَزْكَى لَكُمْ. That if you're told to return, then return. Then. So he's taken all these evidences. One day, his wife's mother knocks on his door. And it's after Salatul Isha. She knocks on the door. He has learned that this is not the time that you should go to people's houses. So he kindly requests if the mother can leave and return at an appropriate time. The issue escalated. The mother took it personal. She said what he did is bad. disrespectful. No, this is something I cannot forgive. She said to her daughter, you're going to stay with a man who basically told your mother got taken out of proportion. The issue came to me in the masjid. I listened. I asked the brother, what's his take on this? He asked me a question. He said to me, what I did Islamically, is it wrong? Do I have the right to say, is the ayah general? Culturally, I find what he did was wrong. Culturally, I'm not pleased. How did you do that? In my head, I'm like, this is wrong. You shouldn't have done this. That's your wife's mother. How can you do that to her? It's disrespectful. That's despicable. My head is bad. My head just making all sorts of feelings, right? Can't do that. It's wrong. You just can't do that, and etc. He, on the other hand, is saying, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. I thought about it. This discussion, this issue. Again, a wife and a husband get married. A lot of situations like this, they get married, and the wife says that this happened and he did this, and he's like, listen, that's your culture. I don't act upon your culture. I don't see that to be disrespectful. Okay? Or I don't feel that that's the case in this situation because it's normal. She's like, no, it's not normal. It's wrong. He's like, it happens. So I've always wanted to know, how do we choose what is right from what is wrong, just merely based on culture? Yeah? Versus a person who doesn't ascribe himself to your culture. In a land that your culture is not predominant, you're in the West. It's not your country, your culture's country. There's another culture that lives there. Does that make sense? Why does your Somali culture or your Pakistani culture have a say here? That makes sense? Am I making sense, brothers and sisters? Yes, I guess we have to also understand people's culture in order to respect them. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I agree. The issue isn't whether you should respect a person's culture or not. The question is that I'm asking is that how do you constitute through mere culture what is right from what is wrong on someone who doesn't ascribe to that culture of yours? Because you're not just saying respect it, but you're imposing on them to follow your culture because you see it to be right, but he doesn't necessarily see it to be what it is. No, I mean, for example, my question is, you want someone respecting a culture is a certain group of community do a certain thing. Respecting it means, oh, mashallah, barik, that's good, that's really good, and I genuinely respect it. I don't say anything bad about that cultural practice. That's respecting it. Like we're married and you need to do this because this is my culture. For example, the sister saying to the brother, or the brother saying, this is my culture, my people do this. You're my wife, you need to do it because it's my culture. And her saying, look, I respect this your culture. I really like it. And it works for your family and your community and your people. That's good. But I don't think I've got my own culture. Our culture, we don't do this. Here, the question I want to ask is, you're both in a country where it's neither of your culture. You're in England, for example. But compromise means one person might have to somehow leave off and their full version of their culture, which they find very disrespectful. You either follow the culture or you don't, right? I'll give you an example. A man divorces a woman. In Somali culture, if a man divorces the woman, he should notify him and the wife that they go their separate ways and they make a decision not to be together. In our culture, the man has to inform the family of the girl the process of leaving this girl. He has to inform them, say, look, I'm leaving the marriage. I'm no longer going to be inspired with this girl. We can't get along. And on my side, it's over. Okay? That's a cultural practice. You have to do that. It's very disrespectful if the man just divorces the woman. Shara'an lakin, there's no evidence to say that the man has to inform the family. You see, I don't want it to just be restricted by the brothers and sisters to marriage issues. I'm trying to be more general in the sense where I want you to all think about the concept of culture and people of different cultures and different backgrounds and for example, as a child, I've been raised to do certain things. My parents have nurtured me upon a certain way. May not necessarily always be even a cultural thing. It might just be my family raised me in this way, to do things in a certain way. I've now grown up learning that this is the way forward in everything. I need to do this. I get married to a sister. She doesn't have that. She's come from another household where she's had another way of living. We now meet, and I've been told all my life, this is how it is. Does that make sense? How do you come to terms with it? For example, some cultures, they find it very, very disrespectful. They find it right or wrong. Here, I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong. They find it very disrespectful if the man wakes up before the woman. They find it what? Very disrespectful. That if a man gets out of the bed and his wife is still sleeping. So, I don't want to mention what country or what people believe that. So, the wife should be well ahead of the husband. He wakes up later. Okay? So he gets married, and he's always seen his mother get up before his father, and that's how he was taught that it should be. Now he's coming to a marriage, and the sister is she's waking up at 10 o'clock, and she's like, "Hey, what's for breakfast?" Out of them. Are you there? Does that make sense? So, how does this work? As a person, how do you judge? All his life he's been told this is how it is. Now, this girl was raised in a house where her father and mother woke up together. Her father and mother, whoever can go into the kitchen and do things, were doing it. That's how she grew up. That's how her lifestyle is. Do you see where I'm coming from? I tend to find when I listen to people's situations a lot of times, cultural clashes It's very serious sometimes, very, very serious. And this man cannot compromise on this because it's a core issue for him in marriage. And this girl, on the other hand, it's a core issue for her in her life to be like this. And there's a big back and forth. There's a fight over the issue. Mallahu bihi alim. Anyone have anything to contribute on that? Yeah. I honestly believe when people get married, they should genuinely come together and really write down, both write down what the core things for them are in marriage. That there's things that some people hold very dear. Like this is like, I would tolerate a lot of things, but these 4 or 5 things I can't compromise on. Everything else it could be worked on, inshallah ta'ala. I'm willing to change on some things, some things, but these are 4 things that I most likely won't be able to change on because I hold dearly onto these things. In other words, when you come into a marriage, I think you should just create your culture together to an extent. Create the culture together. Both of you. Create your little culture. Yeah? The only issue that comes from it, which happens a lot of the times, is that external factors play a problem in it, which is, but he didn't do this for us as his in-laws, and he's this and he's that. That's the only thing. But a lot of the times, the wife and the husband can come together on a lot of things and create their own way of. Because remember, brothers and sisters, anything other than the Qur'an and the Sunnah, we are allowed to do it. The wife doesn't have to wake up before the husband. Does that make sense? There's no evidence for that. Do you understand my point? Or the husband needs to do this because it's culturally. Why do we have to follow? Why can't we come with this mindset, like, where we both like, we can redo the cycle again, because it's all under the mubahat that the Sharia permitted for us. As for when dealing with the family, I think both parties should observe the culture, and both parties should observe the culture of the community, of the parents. But when it comes to dealing with each other, which is the majority of the times, I think we should create the wife and the husband should create their own culture, their own way. That's important for them, because all these rules and regulations that, oh, my culture says this, you have to do this for me. Oh no, my culture says you can't do this. Sorry, please don't do this to me because my culture said this. It caused a lot of riffraffs between them, the people, right? Okay, and it's let's be honest here. It's and it's funny because when we go to Western countries, the English reverts and whose country, or the Europeans and the Americans, and even the non-Muslims in general who take Islam, they come with an open mind. Does that make sense? And they're the people whose country we've gone to. We live in their country, and I've seen it in them. They're more open-minded to accept and adopt your culture and take it from you and borrow it. And يعني, us, on the other hand, we're so rigid on the culture, more than a lot of the times, even the religion. And it's so much rules and regulations. So much rules. There's rules. This is a rule. It destroys the woman and it destroys the man. And it's because of this concept of culture. Again, I don't get me wrong. I really believe culture brings a lot of khair. I genuinely believe it does. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's two people who have different background of culture I'm talking about, who both haven't grown up in that culture. And we Muslims, we come to our culture so much like it's a divine law. I believe my culture or my upbringing is right, and that's it. That's how it should be. My mom and dad, that's what they used to do. My mom and dad used to do that. My mom and dad used to do that. My mom and dad used to do that in every situation. But it doesn't mean it's a divine law. It worked for them. Doesn't mean it's going to have to necessarily work for us. Doesn't mean that's the only way in life. There could be another way. Yani, I think it's very important that we take that on board. And this is the point I wanted to mention. It's because of culture why people do things for the people outside. The social acceptance comes from culture, because the culture is what the society is about, right? So a lot of things are just done because it's socially accepted by the culture. So, and so sometimes what happens is what is morally right will not be done. It will be abandoned only because of it not being socially accepted. Does it make sense? By the way, if you disagree with what I'm saying, don't worry. I won't kick you out of the class, okay? I promise I won't.